Good morning, everybody. I think you can hear me. My name is Brooke Coleman, and on behalf of Fuels America, thank you for coming. Today, we have an all-star lineup of biofuel advocates, the governor, legislators, fishermen, TV stars, and I want to get to them, and that means I got to get out of the way. First, I want to introduce everybody, and then I will introduce Governor Ricketts. A quick note, the governor is going to speak, and then he has a tight schedule, and he's going to have to move on, so there will be sort of this transition that happens with moving bodies. I'm sure you've all seen it before. So we will start with Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts. We also have today Missouri Director of Agriculture Richard Fordyce, Bob Dineen, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Emily Score, CEO of Growth Energy, Chip Bowling, President of the National Corn Growers Association, Iowa farmer and former bachelor Chris Soules, Iowa farmer and former state representative Annette Sweeney, and Brian Sowers, who is the co-host of Crappie Masters TV. So without further ado, I want to introduce Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts.
Actually, the reason I'm going to be leaving the stage right after this is because it's too crowded, and we're worried that it's not going to hold up here. Actually, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. We're obviously here to testify in front of the EPA with regard to the renewable fuel standards for 2017 and how important that is. The renewable fuel standard is probably one of the most successful energy programs Congress has ever passed. And we're here urging the EPA to live up to the statutory requirements that Congress put in it to hit that 15 billion gallon level. It's important because the ethanol industry is a great industry for our country. It allows us to produce ethanol that reduces our reliance on foreign oil. It's something that helps us clean up the environment. In fact, the ethanol industry is capable of removing 350 million metric tons of carbon out of the environment. It's something that saves Nebraska drivers about $100 million a year. And it's also something that allows us to create jobs in rural America. And of course, that's especially important in a state like Nebraska, which is the number 2 ethanol producing state. And if you look nationwide, the direct jobs and indirect jobs that come out of the ethanol industry support about 850,000 jobs across our country. So it's important that the EPA keep the standard where it is. And that's why we're all here today, to talk about all the things that go into that. It's also important, and I'm encouraging the EPA, as the vice chair of the Governor's Biofuel Coalition, to update their data. The data they're using from 2010 is old. Agriculture has progressed tremendously in the last 5 years. We're growing more on less land with fewer inputs, and also reducing the carbon input that goes with that. And again, for people who are concerned about the environment, you want to have ethanol. Ethanol is about the carbon input or carbon footprint from ethanol is about 24% less than producing gasoline. So this is something that is good for the environment, it's good for our country. We think the EPA should keep the renewable fuel standard where Congress set it. And that's not only important for our country, but it's important for the entire world. So I'm excited to be here and to be in support. I think we had an impact last year when so many folks showed up to testify in front of the EPA, and I hope that we see an even better outcome this year. So thank you all very, very much for being here, and we'll, at that point, turn it over to the rest of the speakers.
Thank you, Governor. You know, we really need more governors like Pete Ricketts, because he gets it, right? I mean, he's around the state all the time. He understands value-added agriculture. He understands the importance of ethanol and this program to the economy of his state. So hopefully EPA will listen to Governor Ricketts, other governors that are supportive of this program, because they're the ones that are on the ground. They have an appreciation for the economic benefits of this program. But I'm Bob Dineen with the Renewable Fuels Association. I have 2 quick messages today. One is that, almost shockingly but frustratingly, EPA does not understand what this program is all about. The proof of that was when they released the RVO in May, and an EPA spokesperson said, these numbers are achievable given the realities of the marketplace. given the realities of the market, but what are you talking about? The RFS was intended to change the reality of the marketplace. The RFS was intended to make oil companies and gasoline marketers do that which they otherwise would not do, to invest in the infrastructure to allow E85 and E15 to be sold. EPA allowing the realities of the marketplace to dictate how much renewable fuel is used turns this whole program on its head. And I don't understand why this agency is so confused. The other point, though, is that today's reality of the marketplace clearly demonstrates that 15 billion gallons of conventional ethanol can be met. Now, that's not Bob Dineen's analysis, the RFA's analysis, or the ethanol industry's analysis. That's the EPA's analysis. They say that 14.2 billion gallons of ethanol will be used in E10. They say that 300 million gallons of ethanol will be used in E15 and E85. And they say that more than 600 million D6 RINs will be generated by renewable diesel and biodiesel. That's 15.1 billion gallons for those of you that, like me, that aren't very good at math. So why in the world did they set the level then at 14.8? EPA needs to read their own analysis and get this right. The next person to speak is Emily Score, the new CEO for Growth Energy. Emily?
Thank you, Bob. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Thank you for joining us. The men and the women who are testifying before EPA this morning know what I know, which is that ethanol is a great American success story. But every year, those on the front lines of the fight for energy security have to overcome a mountain of political hurdles. Our call to action has never been more important. Ethanol is an earth-friendly biofuel that reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and it displaces chemicals found in gasoline that form potent carcinogens when burned. These are the same carcinogens found in cigarette smoke. As a mother of 2 young children, I can assure you that call to action hits home very hard. And ethanol gives consumers affordable options and a choice at the gas pump. That's what this country is all about, giving Americans choice. Make no mistake, consumer demand for higher blends is on the rise. People want a choice and they want savings at the pump. E15 right now is sold in more than 23 states. You've got major retailers that are currently selling it or are committed to selling it. Retailers like Sheetz, Come and Go, Thornton's, Mapco, Minoco, Murphy Oil, and ProTech. And we know that E15 is delivering superior engine performance. Major retailers working with Growth Energy have reported that in the past 12 months, Americans have driven more than 150 miles using E15, and those are great drives. Producers, retailers, and the current auto fleet are ready to meet the statutory volumes set by Congress. As EPA noted in their own proposed rule, to date we have seen no compelling evidence that the nationwide average ethanol concentration in gasoline cannot exceed 10%. Furthermore, we know this administration supports greater use of ethanol. Through the USDA, it's already invested over $100 million in biofuels infrastructure to deliver consumers greater access to higher blends. This is a clear indication that they understand the importance of renewable fuels, which is why they must put forth a final rule that meets the statutory obligations as set forth by Congress. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Chip Bowling, who is the president of the National Corn Growers Association.
Thank you, Emily. I'll keep my remarks brief. Our next presenter, Prince Farming. I know you're here for Prince Farming. My friends only call me King Corn, not Prince Farming. So we're here today because the EPA is sending the wrong signal to farmers, investors, and energy market participants around the world, including our competitors in Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. In keeping with the promise of the RFS, America's corn growers have stepped up to the plate, investing in innovative techniques needed to meet our nation's energy needs, expand crop yields, and protect our environment. In fact, American farmers produced record crops last year, and we expect to do the same thing this year. We have the resources to meet our needs, spur investment in rural communities, and create more high-tech jobs. Unfortunately, while farmers market their output at near break-even prices, the EPA is not keeping its side of the deal. The agency has proposed conventional blending targets at 200 million gallons below statutory levels set by Congress. The whole state of Missouri produces about 300 million gallons per year. So while 200 million gallons may seem small in relative to the 15 billion gallon goal, it leaves a state-sized hole in the renewable marketplace. And I know Missouri farmers count on that corn to be used. The EPA excuse is that there are no constraints on the distribution of earth-friendly biofuels, but that just isn't the case. Farmers, along with the ethanol industry and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, have invested millions in new ethanol pumps and fuel infrastructure so that drivers can access affordable, renewable fuel and choices, and it's up to the EPA to deliver on those promises. So our message today is clear. Any reduction in statutory targets takes America backward, threatening our environment, our economy, and our energy security. And that's why we're asking everyone here to stand up for the renewable fuel standard and tell the EPA to raise the targets to the 2017 levels. So the person you're waiting for, Prince Farming, is up next. Chris?
Thank you, Chip. I'm here today not as Prince Farming, as just a farmer from Iowa that has seen the impact that the RFS has had on my family's business and many businesses around, many farming operations around me, and young people like myself who have wanted to come back to the farm, but there wasn't that opportunity until the RFS was put into place, and farming saw a brighter future because of it. And the EPA's final decision on this is going to have a huge impact on all farmers in all of America, and that's why I'm here today. And just as a farmer and somebody who gets common sense, and the RFS is all about common sense to me. It provides a cleaner burning fuel that's renewable, and something that helps benefit the U.S. economy. So to me, it just makes sense, and that's what farmers do. They do things that make sense, and that's what I was brought up doing. And so going forward, it's important for consumers to understand the benefits of renewable fuels, and in the fact that they are cleaner burning and they're renewable, and that we're not having to go to Middle Eastern countries for our fuel sources. It provides financial security for all farmers, and all of the Midwest has seen benefits from it, and it's provided jobs for millions of Americans in smaller communities that struggle. And I see it around me every day. Smaller communities become smaller, and renewable fuels have provided a source of income for people who live in those communities. So it's simple to me, and I think it should be simple for everyone in the EPA and throughout all of America to understand the benefits that renewable fuels has on this country. With that, I will introduce Annette Sweeney, an Iowa farmer and a friend, and look forward to hearing her comments.
Thank you all very much for coming today. And the majority of us are here to talk about the RFS and how important that is to us. And the RFS allows our communities in the heartland to flourish. A lot of us remember, and Chris grew up in it, and a lot of us remember in the 80s when our communities were shrinking up because of the economy that we had facing us. And with the RFS for the renewable fuel standard, it has given us some hope to be able to use that excess grain that we have and to use it as a renewable source. And by protecting America's domestic energy producers from manipulation. Thousand Family Farms, like mine, are helping to provide consumers with clean, affordable options that has saved drivers anywhere from 50 cents to $1.50 a gallon prices last peak. Now, how many of us enjoy going into a filling station? We fill up. My husband and I always look at the ethanol blend, and we look at the price difference and what a positive thing that has been for consumers. And biofuels production continues to become increasingly more sustainable through efficiency improvements requiring less water, yes, less water, less electricity, and returning byproducts as animal feeds. We use the DDGs, the distiller grains from the ethanol plants, to feed our cow-calf operation. And believe you me, the Angus mama cows that we have certainly enjoy those distiller grains. And despite what some may claim that the EPA has approved the 15% E15, yes, they have approved the EPA percent E15 for use in more than 80% of cars on the road today, anything built after 2001. And most automakers now explicitly warrant the E15 for use in new models. How exciting is that? And it's so much fun even to go to our local car dealerships to talk about that, because in Iowa Falls we have an ethanol plant and we talk about ethanol. And it's nice to see that the E15 is approved for cars over 2001. The time is right for the renewable fuel standard to move forward and not backward. Thank you very much, and I get to introduce the sportsman and co-host of Crappie Masters TV, Brian Sowers.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all so much for coming out here today. I know a lot of you are probably in the room going, why is a guy from Crappie Masters here testifying for the RFS? Well, there's a couple of different reasons for that. One of the things, I came from an agriculture background, which I'm very proud of, and I believe in this, also from a farm family. And when I joined Crappie Masters, we had discussions about how can we get the message out about renewable fuels to a whole different audience. We get trapped, I think, a lot of times in the farming industry of telling the story to the same people who are obviously going to support it anyway. We wanted to take the opportunity to get the word out to other people and go, hey, you know what? Maybe you're hearing the wrong information. Maybe you're falling into the trap of hearing about the myths, the propaganda, the deceptions going out there from different people out there telling you that in the marine industry and the outboards that E10 is a bad fuel. It's not. It's the perfect choice for fuel. In fact, we took it to another level with Crappie Masters. Back in 2015, we teamed with the Missouri Corn Growers Association and American Ethanol, and we put into place a program that if the teams that won the tournament, if they were using E10 fuel in their boat, they would win bonus money. Well, I'm proud to say in all of 2015 and so far in 2016, every one of the winning teams has been using E10 fuel in their boat with no issues. You bet, no issues, no problems. And trust me, if you know fishermen like I do, they're the first ones to complain about it if there's an issue. They have not done that. And you might be wondering, well, how do we know that they're using E10 fuel? The winning team takes a polygraph after every tournament, and that's the question that comes up. They have to take a lie detector test. They want to collect the money, they have to do that. And it's not only that. One of the things that intrigues me, I have 2 grandchildren, and I fish, and they like to swim and boat. And I know if we take the RFS numbers and the RVO numbers and go backwards, we're going back to the days of polluted lakes and polluted water. I fished a tournament this past weekend with my grandson, the first time we've done that. He's 10 years old. When you have kids out there, they don't want to fish all the time. They want to play. I let him take the time to go in the water, walk around and all that. I know going backwards, there may come a day where I can't do that and say, sorry, you can't go in the water. It's not safe. It's not good. It's important that we continue to up those numbers to make it to where we have a cleaner environment, cleaner water, and invest in our children's future, invest in tomorrow. So now go back to the old days. I always tell everybody, you can't go forward if you're looking in the rearview mirror. The EPA needs to go forward. It's very important to all of us. It's very important to the next generation and the generations to follow. Thank you very much for your time. It is my pleasure right now to introduce a gentleman who's become a friend, and by the way, he likes to crappie fish a little bit too. He's the Missouri Director of Agriculture, Mr. Richard Fordyce.
That stage is not very big. Be careful walking around there. As Brian said, my name is Richard Fordyce. I'm the director of the Missouri Department of Agriculture. I've had this role for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, and I guess simultaneous to that, full-time farmer in northwest Missouri raising corn, soybeans, and beef cattle. We were here last year, and I know many of you probably were. I've got some notes here that I'm going to look at, but maybe not stay too close to. I think it's a little peculiar that we are here in front of EPA, and I appreciate very much that they're here and they're taking the time to listen to what we have to say. But we were here last year. I think we kind of said the same thing. So when we think about the EPA and agriculture, we have a little issue with them with Waters of the U.S. A little bit of an issue with them in the Clean Power Rule. This is an issue, again, it's a bit perplexing. This is an issue that should be pretty straightforward for EPA. They are the environmental protection agency. And the fact that we're having such a struggle to get them up to speed and get them to where they need to be when it comes to environmental protection is, again, a tad bit perplexing. In Missouri, we are proud to be the home of 6 ethanol plants, and I think Chip said 300 million gallons of production in Missouri, and we're very proud of that. I don't know what the number is of farmers that are invested in those plants, but it's significant. We've got a very vibrant corn growers association that work tirelessly every day on corn issues and ethanol issues. We've got a great soybean association, frankly, and the biodiesel industry is vibrant in Missouri as well, and is supported. It's supported by the citizens of Missouri. It's supported by the Missouri legislature. It's supported by the governor and the administration of Missouri. I said earlier in my testimony to the individuals with EPA, this should not be a complicated issue. This is a win. This is a win for consumers and taxpayers in Missouri and in the U.S. in general. It's a win for agriculture. It's a win for farmers. It's a win for motorists. And I just can't figure out why this is such a problem. But anyway, we talk about at least in Missouri, and I know it's around the country. We talk about this local food movement, and all consumers, they want to know where their food comes from. Well, it makes perfect sense to me that we have a local fuel movement, and people know where their fuel's coming from. It's something that to me is very important. It's critical to agriculture, and all segments of agriculture. I know I had 2 minutes, so I better be quiet here. But I think that again, I do appreciate very much the EPA coming to Missouri, holding these hearings, and again, I hope they listen. I hope they pay attention because there's a whole lot of smart people that are providing testimony in there that should send the message that we need to be sending. So, with that, Fuels America's Zach Sakanik will now open the event up to questions from the press. Here's Zach.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. At this point in our program, we'd like to open things up for a few questions. If you do have one, simply raise your hand. Sir? For those listening at home, the question is, how confident are you that we'll be able to sway the EPA?
I'm actually growing increasingly confident. There were 140 people that registered to speak at this event today. And by my count, only 14 of those are clearly those that would oppose the RFS. About 90% of the presenters today are going to say to EPA, ethanol is helpful. You need to increase the numbers. You need to enforce the statute. I believe even the most cynical EPA bureaucrat would have to be impressed by that. Last year, when people came here and presented testimony and filed comments, more than 600,000 comments were filed at EPA last year, 60% of them in support of our position, and EPA significantly increased the standard from proposal to final rule. And I am hopeful they do so again. look, they're within 200 million gallons of the statute. And as I said, their own analysis shows a pathway to 15 billion gallons. There's just no reason for the agency not to. And in fact, if they don't, you have to question the administration's commitment, not just to this program, but to rural America, to the president's climate change legacy, to the president's efforts to encourage new technologies and investment in cellulosic ethanol. So I am very confident that there'll be changes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deneen. Any other questions? We have a great panel of speakers. Although I know they addressed almost all of the issues during their opening remarks. Anyone else? Last call. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate everyone coming out to this hearing, and a big thank you to our speakers for presenting to us today. Thank you.